Although a panel may look like it's small in number, in reality it's greater than what it appears. We have online Dr. Adam Jones from Canada. Dr. Adam Jones is one of the foremost scholars in the field of genocide studies. He's author of one of the most famous textbooks in that field. And he was a pioneer in developing the term of gendercide, dealing with the use of rape as a weapon, as an atrocity, to break the morale of the people who are being martyred. And so, if we can bring up Dr. Jones, we'll have him do his presentation. Hello, Dr. Jones?
Yes, hello. Sorry, we got overlapping phone calls there. Are you hearing me okay now?
We're hearing you beautifully, and
okay.
We'll go forward with your presentation.
Okay, excellent. Thanks. I've been able to follow along with the live feed, which is a wonderful advantage, I must say. It's, of course, an unusual and important opportunity. So it's a wonderful opportunity, anyway, to pay some tribute to victims of a genocide that is still very little known in comparative genocide studies. And as I was listening to some of the personal testimonies, I was thinking how rare it is in our field that we are able to sample the kind of vivid first-hand accounts in the case of Bangladesh, which we take for granted across the whole range of other genocides. It also struck me, not for the first time, and I hope I may tweak somebody in your audience or on your panels today, that we desperately need a book on this subject, a scholarly, well-researched, relatively dispassionate account that also samples the personal testimonies. To the best of my knowledge, and I keep a pretty close eye on the field, we still have fragments, chapters here and there. I've tried to do what I could in my genocide textbook on the subject, but my feeling is that until we have an accessible, academically credible English language, hopefully with translations, book on the Bangladesh genocide, these events are unfortunately condemned to continue to be marginalized within the field of academic genocide studies. That's not the only field that matters, of course, and your panelists have made references to the importance of political action, mobilizing the U.S. Congress, lobbying political representatives, holding conferences like these is, of course, absolutely vital. But I do think there's a gap in the literature that maybe if I were just beginning my PhD dissertation all over again, I would feel inclined to fill, but really should be filled by somebody with the requisite language skills and academic background. So that's the end of my little speech on that subject. What I would like to perhaps stress in my remaining comments is just something of the comparative dimension of the Bangladeshi genocide and some of the issues and questions that it raises together with other genocides, but in many ways underappreciated. I think there is one way and one aspect of the genocide in which Bangladesh has been somewhat iconic in people's minds, and I'll return to that. But there's obviously a lot more of analysis that needs to be done. One of the things that comes out very clearly in a lot of the presentations so far is the simultaneous targeting of victims according to ethnic or ethno-religious criteria on the one hand, and political criteria on the other. Those two aspects also overlapping with a third which is not usually recognized, and that's gender, and I'll come back to that. But the way in which it was assumed that the ethnic group Bengali was coterminous with the Awami League and therefore with what the Pakistani authorities viewed as subversion and revolution and so on, reminds us, I think, that although the international law of genocide tends to demarcate groups. Under international law, ethnic, national, racial, and religious groups are protected. So there's no question that Bangladesh meets the international legal standard for protection under the Genocide Convention. But what we often don't acknowledge is that rarely, if ever, in genocides are individuals targeted purely on the basis of a single feature of their identity. Even the Jews in the Holocaust were very much targeted by Hitler and the Nazis as political enemies, as Judeo-Bolsheviks. We see the same thing in the state socialist campaigns against enemies of the people, also often overlapping with ethnic groups. So it's a reminder, I think, to be nuanced in our understanding of how and why people are targeted. I mentioned that those categories overlap with the gender one, which has been of particular interest to me and has been particularly present in the panels today. And indeed, I think to the extent that people know about the Bangladesh genocide in the West, thanks to Susan Brownmiller and subsequent feminist commentators, they tend to know it for the mass rapes of Bengali women during the genocide. And I think your panelists have said more than as much as I could possibly hope to say on that subject. One of the focuses of my own work on the gendering of the Bangladeshi Holocaust has been something that has not been so prominent in the panels today, and that was the very explicit targeting of younger Bengali males for, again, viewed as a group being politically subversive and oppositionist. And you will all be familiar with what very often amounted to gender-selective roundups, mass executions by the riverbanks, scenes that are highly reminiscent, for example, of the Japanese army rounding up all younger Chinese males in Nanjing in 1937-38 and executing 200 or 250,000 of them. We don't know the numbers in the Bangladesh case. My own best guess is at least 1.5 million. And it would not surprise me if somewhere over 95%, perhaps well over 95% of those victims were male. And that dynamic of targeting younger adult males for their perceived subversive or military capacity is something that I have studied extensively in my own work, and I'll just reference the website gendercide.org for anybody that would like to follow up on that. The last comment that I will make, unless there's particular issues that you'd like me to comment on, is the whole question of justice and restitution in the case of this genocide. And I think we have had reminders from panelists that these events are by no means so far in the distant past that they cannot be the subject of substantial mobilization today. And indeed, I'm gratified to see that increasingly they are. But when we think of how live a political issue the Armenian genocide of nearly a century ago still is, if we think, of course, about the whole range of restitution and prosecution claims that are still alive against Nazi war criminals, the trials currently going on in Phnom Penh in Cambodia for crimes that were committed only a few years after the Bangladeshi genocide, I'd just like to add my voice to those of the panelists that it seems to me that the possibilities for prosecution, not only for genocide, but in another area of my own work that I think is becoming increasingly important in the field, for crimes against humanity, because in some cases it can be difficult to demonstrate the specific intent to target a specific ethno-national group, which is required under the international law of genocide. Crimes against humanity provisions, which date from roughly the same period, sort of Nuremberg and after, allow for the crime of extermination, which is phrased very similarly to Article 2C of the Genocide